Hey, year 12s, we're going to be doing example 8 now. So example 8, again, same thing, reducing balance loans. And notice the example says with changing conditions. This is where your positive and negative signs will matter. And again, we're going to be using Finance Solver to do reducing balance loans. So here we go. We've got an amount that we're borrowing, which is $150,000. So I'm going to start off with present value. I'm borrowing $150,000 to begin with. And I'm borrowing for 25 years, okay, at an interest rate, so I% is equal to 6.8. That's the rate per annum. And now notice again, it's compounding monthly. Okay, so now what are we looking for in A? We are looking for what are the monthly payments for this loan. So if I were to borrow this, well, after 25 years, so 25 years, since I'm compounding monthly, it means that payments will happen 12 times in a year, because monthly there are 12 months in a year. So 25 times the 12 will give me how many years, so how many times I compounded over 25 years, right? Interest rate, which we know is 6.8, and present value is how much I borrowed, so 150,000. How much do I need to pay for this loan? Well, this is assuming that I wanted to completely pay this off. Well, then the future value will be 0. And my payments, by pressing enter, gives me now, I need to pay, that's if I want to pay it all off. Did it ask if I want to pay it all off, actually? Oh, I forgot to check again. I do want to pay it all off, but I forgot to check PPY again. So here we go. PPY is number of payments per year, so I need to make sure it's 12, and then compounded interest happens 12 times a year as well. So apologies there. So going back to payments, pressing enter, that tells me that I'm paying $1,000.41. Notice it's a negative. I'm just gonna copy, print screen this just so that we've got 12, and then I'm just going to move my cursor up. Here we go. Screenshot. And I'm just going to make this a bit smaller and maybe just shift it down a bit. There we go. So we now know the payments. Payments are clearly this much. So this is how much I would be paying back, or in this case, yes, it is how much I'm paying back. I am paying every month, in this case, $1,041.11 per month. Okay, so that's my payment. Then part B asks us to find how much is still owing at the end of 3 years. So remember, I've got a 25-year loan, and I want to find how much is still owing at the end of 3 years. Well, what will change at the end of 3 years is going to be my end value. Okay, so 3 years would imply that I now have 3 times 12 compounding. So that's the number of times that the payment's going to occur. So after 3 years, so 3 times 12 gives me 36. Rate is still the same. Okay, rate is still the same. It is still 6.8. My P value, PV, which is present value, I still borrowed 150,000, and I know I'm doing payments of $1,041. $1,041.11, and I'm paying every year 12 times. Now I want to know my future value. So after 36 payments, what's my future value, which is what's the value at that point. So I press enter in FV, and you can see here it tells me that I have 14,000. I'm just going to screenshot this just so we can keep a record of what I'm doing. So going down here, I probably should have just done B underneath. I'm just going to write B again. So B, we have N, which was 3 years, and that would mean that it's 3 times 12 payments. Okay, so answering the question, we now have number of payments, which is 36. I now end up having a value that is, this is how much I'm owing. So negative tells me I'm still owing. So I'm owing $142,000, 391 point. Did it say to the nearest cent or no? Didn't say. All right, well, that'll be 91 cents. Okay. Let's have a look. 391. Sweet. That should be pretty straightforward there. Okay, cool. And then part C, let's have a look at part C. After 3 years, the interest rate rises to 7.2%. So it looks like after 3 years, remember the amount that I still owe is $142,000, $391, not $150,000 anymore. But the interest rate has changed to 7.2. So here in part C, be careful when there's this change. You see the present value now is whatever my previous line was, which is $142,391.91. Okay, and my interest rate is now 7.2. So that's 7.2%, and then number of payments doesn't mention about what the question is. So that's a key part. When they say after 3 years, notice that the PV is now changed, and it also means the FV, which was negative, now is going to be positive because that's the amount that I currently have from the bank, if that makes sense. Okay. And so what is my question asking? The question's asking, what are the new monthly payments that will see the loan paid in 25 years? So I still want to pay this off in 25 years, okay? So what would I do in this case here? I simply go back and say, all right, well, after 3 years, how many years left do I have? Well, if I wanted to pay in 25 years, remember after the first 3 years, there's still 22 years left of the loan. So if there are 22 years left of the loan, then N will now equal to 22 times the number of times you compound every year, which is 12. So I'm going to go back to my finance solver, and I'm just going to write over here, that's 22 by 12. That tells me the number of payments I do in 22 years left. Rate, which we know is 7.2. PV, be careful, that is no longer the same amount anymore. It's $142,391.91. Okay, and payments, again, I'm trying to figure payments out. So PMT, I'm not going to touch yet. But future value, I know that I want it to be 0 after that amount of time. Okay, so I want to make sure that PPY and CPY is the same. So it's 12 times in a year. I want my future value to be 0. So going back to my PMT, I press enter. And this now calculates or recalculates how much I should owe, so, or pay every month. So every month now, based on the financial, I'm just gonna finance solver. I'm just gonna put it over here, so you can see what I'm doing. So because of that, I can now say payments $1,076.18 every month from here on. Okay, so after 3 years, the interest rates went up, and I still have 22 years left over. So this is the new type of payment. So that made me increase the amount from $1,041.11 now to $1,076.18. So it's at least about $35 or so, or $36 extra per month after the interest rate has gone up for every month up until 22 years from now. Okay, and then part D, what does it ask? How much extra does it now cost? Oh, Okay, that's essentially what I was just mentioning. So how do you calculate the difference? Well, each month I was paying, as you can see, I'm just going to write it down again. So payments, I'm going to just do D over here because I'm out of space. D, how much extra does it now cost to repay the loan in total? Oh, so it's not every month. So every month now I'm paying an extra from 1,076.18, take away $1,041.11. This will tell me the amount. So let's go to my CAS, press escape. So I've got 1,076.18 minus 1,041.11. So $35.07 extra every month. But then how many months do I have left over? Remember, they calculated for us here 22 times 12. I still have 264 extra payments to do. So that means I am paying extra in total $35.07 multiplied to 264. And that gives me 264. And let's go back to my CAS over here. Multiply 264. So that tells me I've paid an extra, over those 22 years, I've paid an extra $9,258.48 than what I should have. If the interest rate hadn't increased, if it had stayed at 6.8, but by increasing to 7.2, that's how much I have to pay extra over 22 years. Okay, so that's where it gets tricky, and I'd say that's probably the trickiest part of the finance solver in exercise 9C. If you understood the signs and negatives, that's the only part. Just to be mindful that your final value, which was a negative, that's how much you owe, and continuing on with a change of interest now becomes the PV value, but it's positive. That's the only thing you needed to pay attention to. Okay.